friend of the show, Reggie Fils-Aimé. Such a goofy looking dude.
Who?
Reggie.
Yeah, wait, what are you saying about Reggie? I think he looks fine. He looks like if... hold on, what's that guy's name from... He looks like if Blake Griffin had a baby with Mark Cuban.
Blake Griffin
That's Reggie.
had a baby with... Oh my gosh, why is that so accurate? Wake up, everybody. Today is May 19th, and we are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about all the video games we wish we were playing. I'm one of your hosts, Karch, joined by my co-host, Jason Wright. If you decide you like both of us, or even just one of us, you can find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay, or on all the social media where we are Never Free to Play. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please send it to us at neverfreetoplay@gmail.com. Jason, how are you doing?
I am fantastic, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. We just started watching that Ozark the other night.
Oh, yeah.
With Jason Bateman.
What do you think about it just overall? I'm guessing you're on season 1.
Yeah, we're on like episode 4 or 5. It's fine so far. I have, I'll go there right away because everyone else did immediately when it first came out. Was I've seen all of Breaking Bad, so I have
that's
that,
what I was going to ask you.
I have that touchstone as a comparison.
Right.
I mean, to directly compare it to it so far, it's better than Breaking Bad's season 1 was, but obviously not better than Breaking Bad at its best. That's about all I have to say about it.
That is exactly the conclusion I came to after I watched season 1 as well. And I think having watched seasons 2 and 3, and I won't get into spoiler territory, but I think I stand by that statement. I think season 1, like side by side, I think Ozark's season 1's more impressive. And I think a lot of it has to do with pacing, because it took so long in Breaking Bad for them to like get to the point. And in this one, they just kind of throw you in. And I liked that pacing. It worked better for me. And maybe it's just like my millennial attention span. But I mean, obviously I love Breaking Bad. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I do think it's better than The Wire. I'll say that right now.
Never seen The Wire.
People can fight me. I like The Sopranos more than The Wire. I wouldn't waste my time on The Wire.
Yeah, I got a friend at work who would fight you. He would about that. So
I've watched them both recently. If you watched them when they came out, and you never watched them again, then I respect that opinion. But if you watch them with the 2020 lens on, I think you're going to be hard pressed to make that claim and be serious about it.
He might agree with you on that point because he did watch it when it came out, and he's a big fan of it. I don't remember the showrunner who was in charge of The Wire and a few other things on HBO, but he's gone on record saying how much he just likes that guy's work too. So it just clearly speaks to him on another level. But yeah, Ozark is great. I will say it makes me want to go there. I want to go vacation.
You want to go to Missouri?
I want to go to the Ozarks because it looks cool, because we don't have that kind of You have the Everglades. Just go there. It's not the same, man. Swamp is not the same as like lots of river, lakey water stuff.
Oh, lakey water's gross, dude. You're on the freaking ocean. I don't know why you'd want to go to Missouri.
I'm not saying it's better than the ocean, but it's different. But no, I like the cast of characters better, where the strength of something like Breaking Bad is clearly in 3 or 4 characters and a couple side characters. This one is much better. Like that Ruth chick, Bateman's bringing it. I love Laura Linney. I don't hate his kids. Like, I mean, they are like kind of annoying because they're teenagers, but the old man that they're living with, I just like it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, this is not a TV podcast. If you've never listened before, this is a video game podcast about people who never have free time to play. And so we'll go ahead and get into some video game news in just a sec. But before that, we'll do a little housekeeping. Follow us on Twitter and subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah, and subscribe on YouTube.
In that order. And then tell us on Twitter that you subscribed on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. And if you do that, we will definitely shout you out. And we actually have a couple shout outs.
We're desperate. Yep, we got a few. So let's see. Shout out to the person that takes the time to thumbs down our YouTube video each week. You know who you are.
I'm convinced it's the same person who's just like got a vendetta against us. Like maybe they know us in real life and they're just like, oh, thumbs down every video.
But it's Robert.
Oh, I bet you're right.
But he needs to listen to hear us call him out. So we'll see. It's Robert or Kane. You're right. It's got to be.
Yeah, it could be Kane. He had a little bit of beef with me for calling him out on the show because he wasn't listening anymore. And then he actually was listening and then he stopped listening. This is a shout out right here today for Kane because Kane actually got to the part of the podcast where I started shouting him out for like hoping to bring him back. So today I got a text and he's like, he finally got to a shout out. And I was like, cool, you'll get a shout out for that.
All right. So it wasn't Kane. So it was probably Robert.
Yeah.
All right. Got some more turnip shenanigans last week. I had some trouble, actually. Bought some turnips in Animal Crossing to go sell for more money on someone else's island. And I tried someone by the name of Who's That Nugget on Reddit. They tried it twice with me, actually. And both times when I went back to my island, all my turnips were back in my inventory and I had none of the money. And so presumably any of the money that I gave them was also missing from their coffers. And but they, they were really patient and they tried it twice with me when they could have been letting other people in. So thank you anyway. Who's That Nugget? And then I'm going to butcher this because it's more of a noise than a name, but it's Araragi1123.
You did better than I would have.
My second attempt, which was successful. And actually their turnips were selling for more. So that was really nice. So thank you both of you for making my turnip dreams come true. My wife was able to pay off the second to last mortgage on her home. She's going to get the basement, which is the last expansion, and it's the biggest piece to your house. Like it's the biggest single room you can get. And so she'll have that tomorrow. So thank you.
Wow. You were Animal Crossing rich.
I am. No, well, not anymore because we spent it all.
Yeah. Well, that's how it works in real life too. One last shout out to one on YouTube, Crimson Karma, who just subscribed to us today and left some comments on one of the our Finally Plays videos. So, well, welcome aboard. I hope we keep you on with some of our content.
All right. Jason, do we have any corrections today?
All right, Greg, go ahead and start corrections music now. We are back to perfect suck it haters after weeks of you trying to prove us wrong and send us nitpicky corrections about our bird facts and whatever. I'm pretty sure that we got everything right last week, so we're back in black, baby, in corrections music.
Boom. Yeah, the only thing we got wrong was our sound, which we're hopefully going to fix this week, and it'll sound like it's been sounding. And then in the next couple months, I plan to get a real microphone that isn't a cheap headset, and will sound good forever.
I'm super psyched. Yeah. I really am. Yeah. So little technical glitch last week, but at least we have the audio. We didn't lose it, which would have really been bad.
Knock on wood.
But this week we're back to Zencaster, and we'll continue to do this until we have some other things worked out. So,
all right. So let's dive into some news. Oh, Nintendo, I cannot stay mad at you. Shadow dropping more game announcements with Paper Mario, the Origami King. So what was it? It's like Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, somewhere in the middle of the week. Nintendo, boom, there's a notification on my phone. I'm practically dropping it. I'm like, what? It's a trailer for a new Paper Mario game called Paper Mario, the Origami King. And it's coming July 17th, which, as of 2 days ago, was only 2 months away. So we are less than 2 months away from a brand new Paper Mario game. Now, there were rumors, but, rumors don't mean anything, especially Nintendo rumors. Like, still haven't seen anything regarding those, the Mario anniversary stuff.
Right, the 35-year.
Yeah, not that it's not coming, but still haven't heard a thing. Jason, did you see the trailer?
I did, yes.
What'd you think?
I am so stoked because I remember the first time I ever played Mario RPG, and it just was so wild because I went over to my friend's house and he was already kind of into the game, so we didn't start it together. And he was on like that island where you meet Boshi, and I was like, oh my gosh, a blue Yoshi, this is amazing, I'm losing my mind. And then the combat system was like blowing me away because I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, I was in third grade, and to that point, like my only interaction with Mario was like Super Mario All-Stars, all the games in that collection. So anyway, yeah, I'm super psyched about this. The trailer I thought looked awesome. I thought it was really cool that they started out in like the Super Mario 64 version of Princess Peach's castle.
Yes.
And it was just like when that Peach came out, I was like, huh, she doesn't look right. And then she started talking and I was like, this is kind of creepy. What's going on here? And then Mario drops to the floor and I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I was pretty jacked.
That was easy. Yeah, it was easily, just from a trailer standpoint, from a trailer production standpoint, easily the best trailer I've seen all year. And I would go to say, you know, that's going to be GOATY for trailers, unless something just blows me away.
I don't know. That Assassin's Creed trailer, the first one, was pretty cool, but
it was really good. But I don't know. This one blew my socks off. And maybe it was like the out of left field nature of it, but like it. Obviously, the announcement was out of left field, but also then once we got into the trailer, it was like, oh, wow. Because, so, have you played Paper Mario before?
Only at your house, if that tells you anything.
I think I remember that, too, because I think I just gotten the guide from, like, Toys R Us or something. Anyway, so, the first one is super cute. It's, like, it's totally goofy, totally charming. There's no hint of anything that isn't like Nintendo's bread and butter, but it's awesome. It's a great game, but it's very much like the like its predecessor that you mentioned, Super Mario RPG, which was on the Super Nintendo. Then Thousand Year Door was the sequel on GameCube. A sequel to Paper Mario, that is, and it had a bit of a hint of that edge. Not a lot, and not that no one wants gritty, realistic Paper Mario. That doesn't make any sense. But it's always fun to see a Nintendo property go slightly outside the box, or in Thousand Year Door's case, pretty far outside the box, even for Paper Mario. And they just dove right into that at the beginning of this trailer, which is what a lot of people were asking for, and they haven't delivered in the last 3 or 4 Paper Mario games. In addition to combat, which is what we're going to talk about here in a sec. But I was just really excited because just right out the gate, the tone, and Bowser's like folded up. He's like clearly being tortured in a dungeon. He's like a square of paper instead of the huge, Bowser shape that he normally is. And he's being like hung from a rope on a paper clip. It's really funny, but also kind of like, what are they doing to him?
Yeah. Yeah.
So go ahead.
I was just going to say, can you explain to me, because I heard a little bit of like, people being a little hesitant to go all in on this one because of like Sticker Star, and they were like, well, is it leaning more that, or is it leaning more Super Mario RPG? Maybe that gets into the combat you were about to discuss, but like, can you explain to me, are those like 2 different series, or is it just like, oh no, this one is kind of the same DNA, but it's just not as highly regarded?
Yeah, so first 2 Paper Marios are turn-based RPGs. They're very simplistic, but fun in their own way. Like, they're not so simple it's dumb. There is nuance to it and choices to make, etc. And then the third game was Super Paper Mario, which came out for the Wii, and it all but threw out all the turn-based. That's gone. Like, at this point, it is now just Mario's running around jumping in a world like he was in Paper Mario, but you never enter a battle, and there's no level up system except for this vague idea that, yes, technically there is a level and it increases your hit points. It's been a really long time since I played it, but basically they just turned everything upside down on its head. It's still charming and fun and really well written, but that's only half of it. People really wanted the other piece, and so in Sticker Star they thought, oh, we'll bring that back. Except again, there are no levels. There's only these things called stickers. So you would get into a battle, and all of your moves, everything that you do, items, jumping, hammer, fire flowers, they're all controlled by stickers. And the stickers are consumable. The rare ones are consumable, the common ones are consumable, and the only way you get more stickers is by beating enemies. And so it became this kind of, what's the point of battling if I'm just going to get more stickers to fight more battles? There's no true progression. And they also got rid of partners, which are your party members. And so it's just Mario walking around in a Mario world. There's nothing unique about it. It's the same, they kind of went back to basics as far as story's gone. I'm pretty sure, Bowser's up to his old tricks again. And so people really, really hated that. I never played it because people were so down on it. and which was really disappointing because it was a 3DS game at a time where I really wanted a 3DS game, and the idea of a portable Paper Mario sounded like the coolest thing on earth, except then they didn't deliver on what people knew Paper Mario to be. And then they made Color Splash for the Wii U, which I really know almost nothing about. I've seen a few like retrospective videos on it, and again, the mechanic had something to do with like color and like absorbing it and having that as the resource and using that in your little battles. But again, this idea that the resource was so plentiful as to be pointless, and so battles again were they were non-existent to the because there was nothing to do. There was no challenge. There was no strategy. And then so finally now, if you go take a look at the video, you enter combat in sort of like a turn-based inspired system, and there's these rings, and the enemies are positioned around Mario, who's in the center of these circles. And it looks like you have some control over the enemy positioning, and the better you position them with your attacks, the more damage you'll do to the more number or to a greater number of enemies. And so there's a lot that still isn't known, and a lot of people are kind of like already like, oh, they're back to normal. It's exactly what we want. I'm like, I wouldn't be so quick to judge that, having seen nothing but that initial trailer. Really, there's a couple screenshots, but other than that, we really don't know how it's going to play. All we know is that Mario has like hit points, and because you can see them in the upper left corner, but throughout the trailer, they have different amounts. So at some point, you have the ability to increase your hit points, and that's all we know as far as combat mechanics are concerned.
Well, hopefully it's an improvement. One thing I will say, this isn't really related to gameplay, but I did see some people giving Nintendo flack for just tweeting this out instead of like making it a direct. But let me tell you something. If I have to hear about one more digital event that's taking place this summer in place of E3, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm kind of glad they just was like, here, this is awesome. Here you go. Take it. Like, and I don't, this is more akin to like the Fallout 4 announcement than it was to the, say, Elder Scrolls 6 announcement, which, and this is the end of the spectrum I prefer to be on. So I don't know. Call me old fashioned or whatever. I don't need a whole event every time you come out with a new game.
People are just saying that because they're salty that they only got one thing instead of 6 things. Like I can't imagine who's actually upset about that. Like only armchair, industry analysts have any opinion that this wasn't cool and a good idea. Like it did well. The shock and awe thing they've been doing with everything, whether it's a trailer for one of, I wouldn't call this a flagship game, but it's clearly going to be their big summer game. Nothing else is coming out, that's for sure. That like is really going to bring in the masses. No one's going to be like, some people, myself included, want to play Xenoblade Chronicles Remaster, but Paper Mario is going to beat it, sales wise, 100%. So, and I agree. I'm already fatigued by the plague of Summer Games Fest like Twitters and quote unquote events, like, except there's no event. It's just all they're doing is tweeting stuff. Nobody's doing anything except tweeting videos, because what else are you going to do right now?
Right. Oh, one other interesting thing, that this actually comes out on the exact same day as Ghost of Tsushima. It looks like.
Yes, it does. I saw that when I didn't have the date memorized for Ghost. And so when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's really close. And then I found out it was the exact same day. I was like, oh no, because I want to play both of those really bad. And so that means I'm going to be out $120.
And how are you going to buy that microphone if
I
you
don't
just
know,
keep
dude.
buying games, Karch?
I need to, though. I have to buy both of those games. I shouldn't have bought Divinity Original Sin 2 for my birthday. That was a mistake.
When did you do that?
I did it on my birthday.
Oh, man.
Because
you hid it from me.
I'll get to this later. But I was going to get something else. Rachel was going to get something for me, but she couldn't find it. But we'll talk about that in a little while. One last thing, in the end of the trailer, and this is probably nothing, but like this giant Samus Metroid helmet falls on top of Mario, like this giant like paper mache looking thing, and he runs around like pretending he's shooting like an arm cannon. And it's really just this goofy little thing. One of the characters is like, you don't see that every day or something like that. But could it be a Metroid teaser?
I mean, I guess it could, but I just feel like with maybe it's a teaser for the remastered trilogy.
Yeah, anything Metroid related though.
That could be. But if that were the case, I do wonder when they would announce that. Maybe they had this queued up in the Metroid trilogy, as like what they were gonna do for their E3 direct, and then they just couldn't pull it together. But I feel like if that were the case, I mean it's been like a week. I feel like we would have known more by now. So I'm gonna say probably not.
I don't feel strongly about it either, as far as it being a teaser for anything significant. And yet at the same time, I think that's in pretty poor taste, knowing the way that people get about stuff. Like if it's in the game, that's fine, but don't show it in the trailer because people are hungry for Metroid news. And you know that, Nintendo, people want Metroid news. And so I kind of have to, part of me just has to believe that a week seems like too soon. They want to let this breathe a bit, but like you said, it could have been planned for a direct, and it would have been the one more thing. But who knows? Because they're not doing a direct, so we could see a handful of Nintendo announcements over the next couple months. But I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm excited. Paper Mario, Origami King, bring it on.
Let's do it.
All right. Speaking of July 17th. PlayStation released a state of play for Ghost of Tsushima, so it was just that. There wasn't anything else, and for what it's worth, it was very pared down. It was like it starts, they talk about the game and say all the things they want to say, and then it ends. There's no bloat. There's no other announcements or weird things. Nobody was talking during. There's no weird interview style thing. It's all voiceover over gameplay, which is, if you're going to do something like this is the way to do it. But let's dive into some of the details. We won't spend a lot of time on it because there wasn't a lot to it really, but it was the first real look that we've had at this in 2 years, I think, of actual gameplay and what you can kind of expect from it.
Yeah, I don't know that we've seen any extended gameplay on this at all through all of the marketing cycles of this game.
Yeah, I know we've seen some in-engine stuff, but I think it was all cutscenes.
I think you're correct on that. And I gotta say, this really didn't move the needle for me one way or the other. I'll let you share your thoughts. I was definitely more excited about the Paper Mario thing.
That's really funny. I mean, me too, probably, because I'm still in that, I wasn't expecting this mode, and I love Paper Mario, and I've wanted to play a good one in a really long time. But I'm still gung-ho on this. Let's see. Where to start?
Here, let's start with what they started with, which is a 5-minute golf announcer voice talking about how you ride a horse.
Yeah, we spent a little too much time on a horse, just kind of seeing the map from the player's perspective, and they wanted to drive home the point of environmental cues, except there wasn't much environmental cues. I mean, there was one. They were like, oh, hey, see that smoke off in the distance? You're going to want to go there. That's your quest marker, which is cool. That's, they already mention how they're going to use as little HUD as possible. There won't be as many on-screen, non-immersive things to draw your attention. They're going to use the game to draw your attention, but it wasn't a very interesting display of that feature.
No, it really wasn't. And then I don't want to move too fast through this if you had other specific thoughts, but maybe just jumping around here. When they showed off the combat, I think it was a cool vertical slice of the game. But at the same time, it made me wonder if you see this dichotomy between when your character is going from point A to point B. There's nothing in that game. There's trees, there's nature, there's an animal, you're on a horse, and you're just walking from point A to point B, and there's absolutely nothing. And then you get to the place where you're trying to go, and it's a base, and you can attack it two different ways. You can just go in samurai, or you can stealth approach and be the ghost. And it's okay, so a really empty world, check. Go point A to point B, and when you get there, you're infiltrating a base, check. Really, really basic binary morality system, check. Oh, cool, this is Infamous Second Son. It just seems like they're repeating some of those same, I don't want to say mistakes, but definitely criticisms of what was a really early PS4 generation game. But the thing is, we're at the end of the generation, and I'm just not really seeing any sort of jump.
I mean, if we would take this little walkthrough at face value as like the general experience, you're right. It's going to be too empty between the main set pieces and like in combat, but I'd have to watch again. I'm pretty sure I saw enemies that he just ran by on the horse, almost like they didn't actually want to show us that, but it was in the game and they just kind of hoped they could like brush that under the rug. And
I feel like I saw that too, and I thought they were civilians, but I could be wrong.
Either way, I think there will be things. There might not be a lot to satisfy people who like the encounters just out and about. I'm personally not, that's not my thing. I don't really need that, but it is nice to have. And it is weird if you're going to build a world that you can run through, if you're not going to have anything to do that isn't chase a fox or a bird and find a shrine that upgrades your stuff. I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of cool, but I don't want to do that and only that, except for when I'm, doing these big, like, because in the trailer it was a shipyard for the Mongols and you took it down and blew up the ships or something like that. And it was cool. Like one thing I wasn't sure about is like they showed off samurai combat and they showed off ghost combat, like you said, which is samurai is just, fight like a samurai, or in Ghost is more ninja and stealthy. Do I have to choose that before I go into like a scenario, and then am I locked in?
So what it looked like to me is there were different like item loadouts. What I don't know is, can you change those mid combat? Like, let's say you go in stealth and you blow your cover. Can you then change your loadout and say, okay, I'm going samurai? The one interesting thing though is if I recall correctly, your play style is kind of tied to the morality system, because being a samurai is more honorable, so that will make NPCs in your party or who you encounter like view you and treat you a certain way, versus ninjas like more dishonorable. And so like I think that is kind of I don't want to call it morality, but that's kind of that choice that you're making. So I wonder how they're balancing all that in the game.
Yeah, you've mentioned the morality thing a few times. I didn't pick up on that at all. I must have just missed the idea that your actions have like a consequence ethically, morally. That
this was from an earlier. This was not part of this. This was from an earlier statement or something that they said. And if I'm wrong about that, I'll put it in corrections. But I'm pretty sure it was like months back where they were talking about that aspect of it.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense then. Overall, though, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't like blown away by anything. I'm still on board. Sounds like you're still on board. As long as we finish The Last of Us 2 by then.
Yeah, that's going to be the challenge. Because then July is so packed with the new Paper Mario and this. So
2 whole games.
I mean, that's so much for me. Like it's so hard for me to play anything.
I know, man. I'm so sorry for you. Not in like a pitiful way, but
well, I keep having to edit your finally plays videos every week when you lose, and that takes time.
And you feel free to just go ahead and forfeit all you want, and you can take care of your own videos.
We might have to switch it up here soon so that we can actually play some stuff we actually want to play.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. When you introduced one of the most beloved games in Final Fantasy VII, you're like, yeah, games that we think the other might hate. I'm like, maybe we should try a different tactic. Maybe we should try games that we want them to try rather than things that we know they'll hate.
Right.
No more Yakuzas.
Make me play the game that you want me to. Like I said, I was going to play Batman, so if I lose, be like, Jason, you have to play.
No, that's different. Those are your vegetables. You need to eat your vegetables regardless of the bet.
Okay.
All right. So that's Ghost of Tsushima, coming July 17th still. No delays yet. It looks good, like graphically. I mean, it doesn't look like the best game I've ever seen. Certainly not the worst game I've ever seen. Just one note. I don't know if you noticed, but like at one point, things get set on fire all over the place, and those fire effects were terrible. Did you see that?
I didn't notice. Oh, it was at the end where the shit. I was honestly a little bit mentally checked out by that point.
No, if you're not paying attention, you would have missed it as just like kind of like, background noise, but it was weird that I noticed it, and I don't notice those things. This must be my puddle gate from Spider-Man 4 because those fire
right.
were terrible. All right. And then finally in more update news, Unreal Engine 5 they did a next-gen demo running on a PlayStation 5 from some... It wasn't like a game announcement or anything. It was just, a demo trailer. And wow, it looked pretty good. I will say that.
Yeah. It looked amazing. I think this was like the next gen jump when we all talk about what next gen is like, if developers can find a way to utilize even a handful of these features and make them and integrate them into their games, like this is going to be awesome. And it looked like they streamlined a lot of stuff that I feel like would be hard. I'm not a video game developer, but I don't know that every engine is capable of streamlining some of the physics-based things that they were doing in this engine. Yeah. So, for instance, like the what do they call it? Where they're basically modeling what sound would sound like in a certain environment.
I forget.
Yeah, well, I don't remember what it's called, but that's not important. The point is they actually do this with guitar amps too. People will make these certain files that will model like the physics of what sound would sound like coming out of a certain amp, and then you put your effects in through that. I can't remember what those are called, but it sounds like this is very similar to that technology where they're like modeling what sound would sound like in this environment, and then anything you throw at it as input, then you're going to get the output of that of how it interacts with that environment. So I just thought that was really cool. The thing they showed off was like the inside of a cave, which it was cool. It was hard to tell because I didn't have like a nice headset on when I was listening to it, but I was like, oh, that's just the idea of it's cool.
I did have a nice headset on, and it did sound really good. Like I said, everything about it looked amazing. It sounded really cool. They're toting billions and billions of triangles and polygons in every single frame and scene. And, what?
Oh, I was just going to say that was the other thing is they're saying you can model these assets and then you can render them in full resolution without losing anything. So yep. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, this is all anecdotal, just people on forums and Reddit and stuff, but, you're seeing people get really excited about what this could be, and stuff like Final Fantasy VII. Looks a little rocky here and there. They clearly had to make certain sacrifices, but the ease from which, and because it's in Unreal 4, the ease of which Unreal games, especially, if not other games even, but I'm not sure about that, will be able to, like, be upgraded to Unreal 5, will, like, make these ports and these like upgrades that these developers are offering if you buy a game now and then get a next gen console eventually, instead of having to buy the game, you're just going to get a graphical update. Kind of similar to what we've seen with the mid console upgrades for the Pro and the Xbox Series or Xbox One X. That's theirs, right?
Yes.
And so, those are a lot smaller and these would be a lot bigger. And so the doors would look amazing again, since a lot of people like to complain about the resolution of the doors.
Make doors look great again.
Please
do it.
Please do it.
Come on.
So yeah, not a lot else to talk there aside from like, okay, yep, that's next gen. And you get a bunch of wackadoos thinking, oh, PS5 is better than PC now. And it's like, okay, guys.
That was frustrating. People fell so hard for the marketing side of like, basically just like Unreal 5 doing this demo on PS5 and then one guy being like, oh yeah, the solid state drive in this thing's even faster than a PC because of how well integrated it is. Well, the thing is consoles have always been these optimized machines that are the sole purpose of them is to game with. So this is nothing new. This is just marketing spent, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it's not like Unreal 5 isn't going to run on a PC.
Right.
And in 3 years, we'll have graphics cards that make the PS5 and Xbox Series X look like garbage.
I honestly think we already will. I think
affordable ones. Right now, we probably already do, but I mean like actual affordable ones.
I'm PC Master Race, baby. There's concessions here. That's not true.
No, it's not true at all.
Sent from my 500 gig solid state drive.
No.
That's not even M.2. Oh, one more note on this. It also looked in the same way that it looked like they kind of streamlined the physics of modeling certain environments. It also looked like they had streamlined the physics of modeling like light reflections and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if that's going to make kind of these ray tracing effects easier to pull off and just more streamlined for developers. I thought that was neat. And then just like Epic overall, such a cool strategy. I think they said they're waiving the first $1 million of revenue for small devs that use this engine. So you take that in combination with the Epic Game Store having like a more favorable percentage cut that they take for their store versus say like a Steam. It just seems like they're doing all the right things to bring people to their platform. The scary thing is when people come, like what happens, because I think you see this with like companies like Amazon, where you're like, oh yeah, I love Amazon, it's awesome, until they take over the world and you're like, oh man, now we're just stuck with Amazon. But
yeah, it's a delicate balance. You have to hope that their gambit pays off well enough to change the rest of the industry without destroying it, because it will turn into Amazon. Like everybody wants to be the next Amazon of their industry before Amazon gobbles up that industry, because as you know, Amazon has weekly as in poorly tried to enter the games space, and they haven't given up yet, but they've also got no real foothold outside of selling you the games other people are making.
True. Anyway, that's all I had to say about Unreal 5, but
every time you say ray tracing, I want to start screaming and like making a bunch of noise like Pee Wee Herman when they say the magic word or whatever it is. Like, who said it?
Go for it.
I don't have noisemakers. It would just be me yelling like an idiot.
Well, isn't that what this whole podcast is?
Hey, I like to think that I'm speaking in a regular tone like an idiot.
Right.
All right. So that's the news. Still somehow went longer than I meant to, but there we are. Got to talk about what you love.
We're never going to not, I feel like. So we just have to accept it, and people can use the timestamps if they want.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to get into what we've been playing. Jason, you played a few things aside from Final Fantasy VII, and so you get through those, and then we're going to go into spoiler mode.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea, because none of this, I don't have a lot to say about any of this. So I played some Rocket League with Matt and Tyler, and that was a lot of fun. Even though Matt refused to join us on the voice chat because he had been on night shift and he woke up from a nap to play with us, and then he was like too tired to move off the couch, and his wife was watching a TV show in the same room. So anyway, screw you, Matt. Join the voice chat next time.
Sounds like something I would do, to be fair.
And I would say the same thing to you.
You would.
So I played that. I did not play Batman.
Shame.
Did not eat my vegetables. I played some Dauntless with Josh and Kane, and Tyler actually, which was a lot of fun. It's basically a free-to-play version of Monster Hunter, except for it's got some 21st century niceties in terms of like matchmaking and how you get into a game and how you invite people to your party, and the hub world, you're actually all in the same hub world. And so some of that's streamlined, but I would say like the combat and stuff is not as deep. It's a little bit more arcadey, I guess, if I was going to compare them. And a little faster and not as consequential if you make like a wrong move, it seems like. And then the upgrade system was kind of neat, and it was just fun. It was fun. Before Tyler got in there, we were playing with one random person in our party, and I kept trying to pitch our podcast because you've been doing this. Like you've been like on Reddit, bumping the podcast, getting us subs, getting us likes, that sort of thing. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. Except for I was just like yelling at them drunkenly, like, hey, you want to hear a cool podcast? And none of them had voice chat.
So I guess stop drinking while you're playing video games.
Well, it's fun, okay?
Well, then stop putting our name out there.
You know what? They were on PS4. They didn't have voice chat. They probably couldn't even hear me.
That's true.
And then the last thing that I will say that I played this week is I actually played some Tetris 99 and Super Mario Maker with my son, Luke, who is 3. And he definitely plays video games like a 3-year-old. It's actually, Super Mario Maker 2 on the Switch. But it's funny because it's been raining here. And he has, like, one time I said something, he's like, hey, Dad, can we drive my car tomorrow? And he's got this little, I talked about it last week, but he's got this little remote control car that I can drive him around the backyard. I was like, no, sorry, son, it's raining tomorrow. We're not going to be able to do that. And he's like, well, what can we do when it's raining? Because he loves being outside. I was like, well, there's so much fun stuff to do inside. We could play with toys, we could play Hot Wheels, we can watch movies, we can play video games. And he was like really intrigued by that. He's like, oh, when it rains, we can play video games. And so now every time it rains, he's like, Dad, let's go play Tetris. And so we'll go play. But today he wanted to play Mario too. And it was so cool because I could just sit there and make him these little levels where I knew he could beat it. Or like I could basically put him on rails where he just had to move to the right and he'd just go to the end of the level. And he just loved it. And so what we do is I made him a really, really basic level where you get in, they have the Koopa car in the Super Mario World theme. You have this Koopa car. So it's a little Koopa in a car. You jump on his head, then you can drive his car, and it automatically goes whatever direction your thumbstick is. So I basically just made a straight line with some of those speed up pads, and you just fly straight to the end. And then I like bounced him onto the thing, and then every time he would end the level, I would be like, okay, well now what do you want me to add to this? And we'd add one thing. And it was just so cool, like to see him light up and like be so into Mario. Because I literally remember playing Super Mario World with my dad when I was that age, and now he's that age, and we're doing this too. So it was fun.
That's such a cool like use case for the game. I'm sure somebody out there has done some, or if not tens of hundreds of people have done a similar thing and streamed it. But like I've never heard of it. Like take your 3-year-old, and 3-year-olds are notoriously terrible at video games,
right?
And just really utilize every aspect, and obviously not every little teeny tiny thing you can do, but the base concept of make a level, play it, tweak it for more, but doing that with him, that's so cool.
It was so fun, and he loved it. He was getting so into it. At the end, he wanted me to put in tunnels, so we got to tunnels, and yeah, it was awesome. Anyway.
I really do I would love to play that, because I think Juliet and I could have the same amount of fun in the same kind of way, because, she's super creative in the way that kids are,
Yeah.
And just, they're always, whether their ideas make sense or not, they always have them. And
right.
I love to see them come to fruition, like when we're playing make believe, and it's like, okay, and then like she'll make up games to play, and they're terrible. They're awful games. They make the rules just don't make it's not even a game at that point. It's just her narrating us through a pretend game, and I'm along for the ride. I'm like, yeah,
sure.
Okay, sweetheart, sure, yeah. And then what? And then how do I? Okay, well, that doesn't make any much sense. I don't know why I just lost, but okay.
I win. What's this game called again? I win.
What is that?
It's from Big Daddy.
That's right.
They're playing cards. But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. But we can get into. I'm so ready to dig in, because the other thing I did play was I lost our bet last week, and you made me play the original Final Fantasy VII, and I played it, and I think I appreciated it for what it was, understanding the time that it came out, and I didn't hate it. So let's get into the spoiler cast here. We're gonna do a spoiler segment, not a full spoiler cast. So this is your fair warning right now. There will be timestamps on this video, and I'll try to put them in the podcast description as well. So if you don't want spoilers, just skip ahead to the Jason's Vegetables or the Random Rant, whatever timestamps next.
Yeah, well, it'll be clear. We'll make it clear.
Yeah,
and to be clear now, these are spoilers for everything Final Fantasy VII related. Full stop. I don't know what I'm going to get into, but I'm not going to hold back on whatever that is.
So then we just lost the only two people that are going to listen to this, which are Josh and Sean.
Yeah, but hopefully we get people with the tags and the hashes, and I sound like an idiot and an old man right now. But you know what I'm
tags and the hash. I might put this out there as a separate like YouTube segment.
That'd be fine. We could break it out.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us about Final Fantasy VII OG, Jason, because you played that on PC.
So what do you want to know? Do you want to know the story? Do you want to know my experience with it? Or both?
Let's hear experience first, and then you can just kind of weave in the story as you see fit.
Okay. Well, so one thing I will say is that I bought it on Steam, and I played it with an Xbox One controller. So that's something to keep in mind, because I had some technical difficulties getting that controller to work. And if you go check out the YouTube video, there's like a 20-second little cut video where at the beginning, I mean, I do the whole gameplay, but you can see what I'm talking about with the technical difficulties. But what it amounts to, if you want to play it, is you have to start the game with the controller plugged in, but you can't use the controller to enter a new game. You have to press X on the keyboard. And then once you're in the game, the controller, you can play with the controller. It's real dumb. So there's that. So that was my first little intro. But yeah, so I'm going to get everything wrong about this because I tried really hard to pay attention. But again, you keep making me play games where I have to read, and that's hard for me. So I am an ex-soldier, and I jump off a train, and I'm immediately just thrown into a situation where I don't really know what's going on. But this big dude who Barrett? Barrett. He says to me, "Hey, new guy, let's go." And he starts running in a direction. And so I just assume I'm supposed to follow him. And then I encounter some enemy soldiers, which is your first encounter. It's within the first 20 seconds that you play in. And you get a little taste of the battle system, but you're still not really sure what's going on. But like I said, you get a little, my first initial thing is the only combat system like this that I have to draw on is Pokemon. So I'm immediately okay, pick my attack, pick the guy I want to hit. Okay, cool. It's my reflexes kick in. But there's definitely more to it than that, because you see this little timer bar going, and you're oh, I can't attack yet. Oh, the timer bar. And then you're okay, I'm kind of getting this. And so you go in and you are trying to take down this Maku reactor, and you get to name your character, which I found interesting because I don't think in the remake you'd get to name anybody.
No, that's a holdover. I mean, at the time it was a holdover for the series. You were able to name every main character, so the lead and then all your party members, all the way up until Final Fantasy. So the last one you could do it was Final Fantasy X. So you could rename Tidus and Waka and all those other characters. I think it was 12 when they finally, especially because they had full voice acting. I mean, they had that too, but in 12, they were no, we're going to let the names these are the names of the characters so that we can actually say their names. Oh, wait. You could only name the main character in Final Fantasy X. That was my mistake. Anyway.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I thought that was a little interesting, but I kept everybody named what they were named because I knew that when you and I talked about it, I'd get lost if I renamed them. So then you go in, and it is the same kind of section that was the demo of the remake, where you're trying to blow up the first Maku reactor. And it actually went a lot faster. So you can kind of see the time stretch even in that demo section with how long that demo took versus how long it takes in this game.
Yeah, you played a total of 44 minutes, I think I saw at the end.
No. I played almost an hour. I think I played 54 minutes or something.
But you got past the Scorpion, and the Scorpion in the remake is about 45 minutes by itself.
Oh, I know.
To get to the same part in remake, you would have had to play another hour and a half.
Right. And so that was the interesting thing of having played the demo section and then playing this, and you kind of do see those differences, albeit I did it in the wrong order, but yeah, I mean, for what it was, I honestly, I would have been absolutely blown away by this game if I had played it in 97 or even, 2000 when I was a little probably old enough to actually enjoy it. Cause 97, I would have been 8. So probably a little early to have really enjoyed that game.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't play it until I was somewhere in middle school. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking. 2000, 2001 would have been prime. I still would have been blown away by it, to be honest.
I was. I don't know why, but I was. I was this speaks to me.
It was great. Now, what I will say is, in retrospect, Cloud is a whiny little whiner.
It comes off as whiny. When it's just the text, it's pretty much interpreted as, dude, you're here for, you want to be here to get paid. You, stop whining about your job that you literally just started.
Yeah. And it's so annoying. So okay. Anyway, you blow up the Mako reactor, you escape on the train, and then you go out to your hideout, where you kind of rendezvous with the team, and it looks like some weird halfway house where the Lost Boys live, and there's like, I guess Tifa seems like the mom of the group, even though
It's kind of a pretty good assessment of what's going on.
So yeah, and then so she's Barrett. So I didn't realize this in the demo, but Tifa is Cloud's childhood friend, but she's Barrett's wife. But you don't really get along with Barrett, and I get why.
She is not Barrett's wife. She is Cloud's childhood friend. She is not Barrett's wife.
Weird.
That's so funny. I did not pick up on that you thought that during the Let's Play.
Oh, that's so weird. See, I thought Tifa and Barrett had a child, and that was Marlene.
No, Marlene, we'll get to this. Well, Marlene is Barrett's child, but it's adopted. Like, it's she's a child of a friend of his who died. And so he took her in because his wife would, they had nobody. So now they have each other.
That even more makes my assessment correct that she's Wendy in this weird scenario.
In the Peter Pan analogy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, I'm at this hideout and everybody's, talking down to me, and I'm like, I don't care about Avalanche, which is like what we work for, I guess. I don't care about Avalanche, and I don't care about Soldier, and I don't care about this world, man. And I'm just like, shut up, Cloud. You're so annoying. You know what? I wish I could be Barrett so I could slap you. And that's as far as I got. And then I was like, I gotta save and be done with this.
So let's talk about the Scorpion boss.
Yes.
Had a little trouble there. What did Barrett or Cloud, I think it was Cloud technically, what did Cloud tell you to do when the tail was up?
He told me to attack when the tail was up.
And what did you do, Jason?
I don't know, because I don't know how to time attacks, because I just pick it and then it just does it whenever it's my turn.
Did you notice when the tail was up or down?
Not really. It was kind of cut off.
Really? Interesting.
I don't know. That's how I felt.
That's how you felt. Well, if you're paying attention and it's not cut off, it's pretty clear when the tail's like basically like parallel to the ground, or it's like up, curved, ready to strike. And you're right. Cloud did say attack while the tail is up. It's going to fire a laser. Except that's a typo. You are not supposed to attack when the tail is up. And that's your fault. But you're certainly not the first, and you'll probably not be the last person to like take that simple cue and tutorial and be like, oh, okay. And then die because of it. Like, because it's a brutal attack for someone who has no cure magic yet and only like 8 or 9 potions to their name.
Okay, so you're not... I'm watching it right now. Mm-hmm. It is really... I feel like the tail's up the whole time. Oh, no, there... It kind of goes down. It's really hard to tell what up is and what down is. It
takes a while to go down if you're wailing on it while it's up, because basically the way the active time battle system works is, triggers won't occur while actions are being taken. So, like, while the attack animation is happening, no one's, like, meter is going up or down. And so it'll feel like the tail's up a lot longer and you're getting like hammered on even more, obviously, if you're attacking it while the tail is up. So that was a little tidbit that I found very amusing, because again, it's just kind of one of those rites of passage. If you've never heard the meme about the typo or just didn't figure it out when you're playing, because why would you? You're just trying to do what the game's telling you to do.
That is super interesting. Yeah, no, I definitely had never heard that before. So that's really funny. In retrospect, but I did not die at this.
No, you didn't. You skated by. You used all your potions. I think anyway. All but one of them, maybe.
Yep.
Because I was like, oh, he's dead. There's no way he's getting out of this. But you made it, and you were surprised too. Like, what's happening? Oh, I won. Okay, that's it.
It was really weird because he died. I didn't attack him. He just like stood there and died.
No, you did. It's just there was a huge gap while it triggered the death phase. There was just like nothing happened, and then he just kind of like blew up into the red polygons, which is how all enemies die in this game.
So strange.
Did you get a chance to like? It didn't like open up the equipment and materia stuff for you, did it?
No. So Barrett gave me materia. He was like, "Here, I think you should probably hold on to the materia if you can show me how to use it later." And he handed it to me, but I didn't actually get to see what that did at all.
Gotcha. Okay. because that's a pretty big part of it. But the tutorial, like somebody I think at some point shows you, hey, do you want me to show you how to use materia in like classic, 90s game style, and then they walk you through like a scripted tutorial.
Gotcha.
So overall, you didn't hate it.
No.
For somebody who doesn't usually play old JRPGs.
Yeah, I would say that's a really good summary of my thoughts on it. It's like I said, I think for what it is, it was an amazing game, and it doesn't hold. I mean, is it fair to say it doesn't really hold up? I mean,
I would disagree strongly. You can, and I would understand where you're coming from, but I would not. I would agree that it does hold up.
It just needs a little bit of refinement. It didn't even need the remake to make me happy. I would have been happy with like I'm not usually one to care about the graphics, but the textures were so bad and hard to distinguish between that, like, when I was in that section where you have to climb ladders down to get into the Maku reactor, I couldn't figure out how to line myself up with the ladder to jump onto it because it just looked so bad. And again, I'm never a fan of random encounters, so that was really, like, I hated that. I kind of get why they did it, because the environments are so small that if you had other characters on screen, I feel like there might not even be room for them. And
I mean, that was a time where nobody didn't do random encounters. If you did a turn-based JRPG, nobody did on screen except, like, I think Chrono Trigger was one of the few people who did it that early, and they were one of the only people who did it for a really long time. Now, I'm sure there's some, like, RPG historian out there who could list off a bunch of games that only a few people have played, but you get what I'm saying.
Right.
To your graphics comment, there are mods that, like, sharpen stuff up, the character model specifically. The backgrounds are, like, pre-rendered. And you can see that they look obviously way better than anybody that can actually move. But yeah, there's some mods out there that make it look, maybe not PS2 levels, but certainly not as early PS1.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard for me to judge a game like this, having not really played a lot of them over the years. So I can't to the opposite of that, because I'm so used to them, I can't not see the flaws, I guess, if you want to call them flaws, because I mean, it is old and they weren't flaws at the time, so it feels wrong to call them flaws now. To be fair, and you made a mention of this at the end, like, what it feels like to have more than two people in your party. The pace of combat picks up quite a bit as you get further in. I assumed that because like there would be periods where I was just waiting for both of my characters' time meters to tick back up, and we were just like standing there awkwardly looking at each other. And then I was like, well, if I had 4 people, then I would be doing other stuff. So
yeah. You might like the Switch version because it comes with those features where you just, like, you click the sticks or you press pause and you hit like R2 or something, and it either speeds it up to ×3, or it fills your limit break all the way, or it makes you, like, invincible, like those kinds of, like, little cheaty things. And it might be just enough to make you want to play without turning you away because it's too easy. I don't know.
But then I can't record it.
Well, you're not going to record it if you keep playing it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Exactly.
So talk to me about limit break and the difference between limit break in the original versus the remake, because from what I could tell, the way the limit break thing worked, at least as the attacker on offense, is like once you got hit enough, it would charge up and then you could unleash a pretty powerful attack. That's
pretty much the same as it was in the remake, actually.
Okay.
The idea was that, I don't know, I mean, obviously if you use it, the bar gets reset. I don't know, like, if you reach a certain chapter in the remake, it like resets the bar behind the scenes. But when you go through an area that has a lot of combat, it would persist. And then obviously in boss fights is usually when you're going to see it go up the most, because you're taking the most damage in a boss fight. But it's the same concept. The limit break builds up, you use it. It's one of your most powerful attacks for a reason. Some of people's limit breaks, so you use 2 of them. You'd use one of Cloud's and one of Barrett's. Barrett's limit break in the original is the same as it is in this one, or in the remake. And then Cloud's limit break is actually one of your basic skill moves. And then they so they repurpose some people's limit breaks as just regular moves, and then some of them are still limit breaks, or they give them new ones, etc.
Interesting. It is interesting to see these little tweaks that they made that make such a, what I feel like a big difference, because the combat system in the remake so refreshing. That I'm like, I want that combat system with this story. It kind of makes me want to play the remake in a way.
The remake still has that story.
That's what I'm saying. But then at the same time, it's like, it's such a small chunk, it seems like. But talk to me about it, about, like, I've kind of gone through the extent of what I have to say about the small section I played, but talk to me about your experience and your thoughts on the remake.
So I finished it. The night we finished recording, so that was technically my birthday at that point. I actually finished 2 games that night.
That's impressive.
Did I finish both Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy in the same night? That sounds crazy. Anyway, I definitely rolled credits on Final Fantasy VII Remake in the wee hours of the morning on May 13th, 2020. And I had some mixed feelings about it that night. I have since listened to like 4 different spoiler casts from my favorite, podcasters and influencers, etc. I don't like using the word influencers. Makes it sound like they're manipulating me. But overall, I'm going to say this at the top. I did like it. I didn't love it. It's not my favorite game ever. I don't even think I like it more than the original yet. Like, we'll see how the rest of this series pans out if they ever actually finish it. But this was a really amazing endeavor. And this team should be really proud of what they did, because they did something I never, ever would have dreamed someone could do, which was make a really good game that doesn't lose or change, the heart of what the original was. I mean, there are changes, and they're not the same game. They're also like 20 plus years apart. So obviously, like, it was always going to be vastly different. And yet at the same time, it feels like coming home. It's like, wow, this is so familiar. How did they do this? Like, everyone loved Resident Evil 2. They thought that was the best remake that anyone's ever made, and it probably was at the time. And then a little over a year later, Square comes in and just one-ups them in every single way. Every single way. And I really liked Resident Evil 2. I played it, I finished it, I thought it was a great game. But as far as a remaking, a remake or remastering the original, Final Fantasy VII beats it hands down.
It's always, but to your point, it is always really impressive when studios, media, entertainment industry can manage to take some source material and recreate, like you said, the heart of it. And it's interesting because, like, I heard Gary Whitta made this comment about the new DuckTales series on Netflix. He's like, they basically took the series and they rebooted it and made it what you remember it being. But if you go back and watch the original, that's actually not how it was. And I thought it was an interesting concept of, like, making something what you remember it being instead of what it actually was.
Yeah, and in this case, that it's a pretty good analogy. It's not quite the same because of just how different it is. A cartoon is a cartoon, and obviously production values go up, etc. But I mean, these games are just too different to be in that camp exactly. But
right.
It comes as close to that feeling playing it for the first, like, the first 3 to 5 hours of this game are some of my favorite 3 to 5 hours in gaming in the last few years, like, hands down. Like, the opening demo, it's not just the demo, that is just the opening 45 minutes of the game, where the demo ends is slightly changed because it's like, okay, and then pre-order the game, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you fight the Scorpion boss, you escape the reactor, it blows up, and you, like, I think it ends with you just, running through some rubble with the Avalanche team, and that's just where the game picks up, basically. But let's see. I got a lot of thoughts. I jotted them down, trying to organize them right now. But yeah, I finished this game and I was a little skeptical And a nugget of wisdom I heard, because I was really worried. I was like, I have no idea how they're going to do this again, and then how they're going to finish it, and how it's not going to take 15 plus years. And even though the ending was a little weird, the fact that myself and everybody else who's played it for the most part enjoyed like 95% of this game, it would be really bizarre if they somehow messed it up. You know, like you can't accidentally make such a great game. I mean, maybe they caught the lightning in a bottle. I don't know. But to think that the second one and the third one, and maybe even the fourth and fifth one, if they actually go that crazy far, would be bad, would be like, it literally just seems like an impossibility. So many things would have to go wrong. The game would just have to not come out, basically, for it to be a failure. And even then, I don't know how much of a failure that would be, because this one was really good and ends in kind of a way that's like, oh, well, all right, we could just kind of leave it at that, and that's that.
So talk to me about story beats, because this is a spoiler cast. Like, it sounds like coming out of the demo section, that was like almost like your highest high. Maybe not for the whole game, but you're super, super amped about the game. I would say for like the first how many hours, and then at what point, talk me through those story beats, and then at what point did it downturn and why?
Okay, so yeah, the demo ends just after the reactor blows up, basically where you got to, and you got just a little bit farther, and then beat for beat, you know, you escape through the city, through the rubble, and you make your way to the bar, Seventh Heaven, in the Sector 7 slums, where you meet Tifa. And there's not a lot different from the original at that point up until...
Well, hold on. I have a question about the bar.
Yeah.
So in the original, when they're about to head off to the second reactor in Midgar, they just like, Marlene, hold the fort down. You're going to be the bartender in this really super slummy area. Do they do the same thing? They leave like a 7-year-old girl alone to run a bar by herself?
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice.
I want who went and... So the first major change that happens is there's a lot of new stuff that happens between getting to the bar and then going on the second reactor run. That's where you get to do your first set of side quests. Tifa walks you around the town, and so it's a slum, but it's not like a bad neighborhood. It's just a bunch of poor people who live together. You know, they're the people who've been cast aside by society, and they've had to make do in the rubble that is the older part of the city, instead of getting to live on the, you know, fancy plate that they all live underneath. And there's this new character, and she's like this old woman tenant that like runs the apartments that Cloud stays in, and she keeps making like old lady comments about how Cloud needs to be careful around breaking Tifa's heart, or she'll do this and that. And she's got like a broom for a head, and it's hilarious. And it's these little tiny character additions that are the best parts of this, where they added stuff that didn't exist, but doesn't do anything to take away from what did exist. So Jesse's a character, Wedge is a character, and Biggs are a character. They're the three people that are under Barrett in Avalanche. And they have a couple one-liners in the thing, and you can talk to them in between other scenes. And they, again, just a couple one-liners, but they flesh them out so much, especially Jesse. Jesse is easily the best new thing about this game, and one of the best characters in the entire thing. And it's amazing that they're able to do that with somebody, because they take a nobody, because that's essentially what she's just a nobody. She has no real personality. She's like kind of their more tech-oriented person. She makes the bomb that blows up the reactors, and that's about it. And they take this nobody and they make her an immediate fan favorite, which is difficult because she's also this third love interest. So there's already a love triangle with Eric.
I was gonna ask you about that.
Go ahead.
How does that all play out, given that Jesse's so into Cloud, but then like he has got this other thing going with his childhood friend Tifa?
We'll get there in a bit.
Okay.
But just know that exactly, there's this childhood friend Tifa. Eventually you meet another chick called Aerith, who has the total hots for Cloud. And there's this girl named Jessie, who's probably, she's the first girl you meet in this game. And if you've never played Final Fantasy VII, she's just coming on to you real hard. And you're like, oh, I guess this is the love interest. Nope. Oh, here's this other chick. Oh, here's a third chick. And so Cloud's got three women who want him. And yet at the same time, Jessie she doesn't like step over Tifa's character. She doesn't step over Aerith's character as far as like being too similar to one or the other. She's a third person who is completely different and entertaining, and like, you know, as far as like, oh, who do I want Cloud to be with? Not that it's a choice, but like if I could pick, you know, they've made it difficult. Like, oh, these are all like great people, and then they have their strengths and, you know, some of them weaknesses, but like it's amazing that they were able to do that with somebody who was nobody and squeeze them in so effortlessly, like they've been there the whole time.
Do you think they'll add like a rose ceremony DLC where you get to give roses to two of the three?
You know, there is a thing in the original. It's not a rose ceremony, but essentially based on choices you made, you go on this little date, and it can be either it can be Tifa, Barrett, or Aerith, or maybe even Red 13, who is a dog, tiger, cat man thing.
Ooh, that sounds right up your alley, Mr. Hatoful boyfriend.
Hatoful boyfriend. Exactly. I love me some animals. But I don't know how they're going to handle something like that in the future iterations. But anyway, so that's the first time I got off track talking about Jessie because she's amazing.
It's okay.
But so between the two Mako reactor runs is when they add the new stuff, where they add like running around the slums and kind of building up Midgar and the characters, and that this is a real place with real people. And that's important. We'll get to that in a bit, because you need to know why Tifa and Barrett are fighting so hard. And it's the people. It's the people they've come to know and they've come to love, and they call friends and they call family, because they're a tight-knit community, and they're being oppressed by the Shinra Corporation, who's also they're not just a corporation who loves money and, you know, and they're oppressing poor people. They're also literally destroying the planet as they suck out the Mako. So you do all those things and you go on another reactor run. Jessie gets hurt at one point. There's this whole long side quest where you do something with Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie as Cloud. You leave Tifa and Barrett behind because they're doing something else. And she gets hurt at some point. Tifa steps in and she's like, okay, I'm going to go. And Jessie has to stay there and can't do anything. And that's where we get to the part that you stopped at. Let's see.
So yeah, so then tell me, because this, obviously I didn't go any further. I don't know what happens next. Is this the point at which you thought the pacing was a little off, or? No,
that hasn't happened for a while. So the pacing for me personally, I'm going to have to skip some story stuff because we'll be here for literally 4 hours.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, this is a spoiler section, not an entire spoiler cast. But
right. So you go through the motions at that point. There might be a few new things here or there. You blow up the second reactor, except it turns out like Shinra's in the know. And the president shows up and he's like, I've been pulling these strings, basically. And something happens and Cloud falls. He falls off a reactor. And then he falls all the way into the slums, which is an inhumanly far distance to fall. Like, we're talking skyscraper levels. And he falls through a church into a thing of flowers. And he meets Aerith for the second time, because actually in the beginning, he's running through the streets, escaping the first Mako reactor explosion, and you bump into her.
Oh, I know. She's the flower girl.
Right, the flower girl,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So at that point, you can buy the flower just like in the original, or whatever. I can't remember in the original why like you guys go your separate ways. I think she just runs away, or the soldiers come out and they're chasing you or something like that. In this one, there's all these creepy ghost things, and they're like, they look. Do you remember Harry Potter, the Dementors?
Oh yeah.
They look like Dementors, almost to a T. They've got these billowy, flowy robes, and they just kind of spin around, and they're ominous, but they're not really doing anything. And then Aerith freaks out and she runs away, and you don't see her until Cloud falls through their church, where she's growing her flowers. It's a big deal because flowers don't grow anywhere, because the slums are inhospitable to like anything that is regular, natural life, because of the themes of the game and the story. And that's when the pacing for me dies a bit, because you're with Aerith and only Aerith for a really long time in the remake, when in reality it's just a really quick kind of jaunt through the slums where you fell to get back to your party before you go to the Wall Market section, which is like their Vegas crazy debauchery place. But in this game, you do another round of side quests, and if you do the side quests, it takes a long time, and there's just a lot of cutscenes, and it's just, that's for me when it starts to drag, because like I want to get back to Tifa, I want to get back to Barrett, I want to get on with the story, and this is just, there's really nothing here. And yet at the same time, it's really important that the player understands, that creates a connection between Cloud and Aerith. They have to have moments that make you feel for them and their relationship.
So let me ask you then. Yeah. So because, do you think this is something that just bothered people who have played the original, or would this bother someone like me? And then how optional are those side quests? They're completely optional. You can just skip them and go straight to your main quest marker and move on with the story. So why didn't you do that? Because I wanted to, I hadn't done too many side quests yet, and I was just playing the game, and I was having a good time playing the game, but at the same time, by the time I got through them, I was like, man, I should have just not done those. So I could have it's hard to describe. So it's like one of those things where you start pulling the thread and you're like, this can't be that much longer. And then you're like, oh my gosh, well, I've got to finish it now. Kinda. And again, I hadn't had much, I'd done the previous set of side quests, and those were kind of dull, but not terrible. But at the same time, maybe they're just how side quests are in the beginning. And then it's like, oh no, this is how side quests are just going to be. And it's definitely one of the more lacking parts of the game. They just kind of threw it in there. Again, it's nice because again, it does breathe life into these areas that were normally just backdrops, and then you literally just walked through them. Maybe there was an NPC here or there, but now these are characters with names and, even their own mini backstories, and you're helping them achieve their goals, whether it's something dumb like, oh, find my cats, or kill this giant monster that's plaguing us in the graveyard, all those kinds of things. But I hate the find my cats quests. I hate those types of quests. Oh yeah, they're terrible. In every game, I'm just I don't want to help you with your menial task because I'm trying to save the world here. Yep. So, but for the most part, nothing major changes between the original game and this point. At some point, you meet Aerith's mom. Aerith's mom is like, can you please leave her alone? She doesn't need someone like you, someone from Soldier, ruining her life. And Cloud's like, yeah, that's fine. I really don't want anything to do with her. She's nice and all, but I'll leave. And then he tries to leave, and she follows him. And so she's showing him the way back home. And then they run into Tifa, and Tifa is even more scantily clad than usual. And she's on some wagon. Heyo. And she's on some wagon heading towards this place. And that's when things finally start to pick up again. At the wall market, which is, again, they're Las Vegas in the slums. You go through this whole thing to try to save Tifa, because for some reason Tifa has put herself in harm's way to try to get some information, and you don't like the sound of that, and so Cloud's he's rushing in to save her. There's a whole series of little subquests, because you got to basically make yourself into a woman and make Aerith seem like a really, sexy prospect for this criminal, crime boss guy who's basically picking a new wife, which is basically a sex slave. And they say, they don't use those exact words, but everything indicates that that's what's happening, which is what happens in the original. Cloud finds a dress, he finds perfume, you do all these goofy little fetch quests. And it's really fun in the original because it takes you 20, 30 minutes tops. And this one, it takes a little bit longer, and there's all these new characters, and the characters are fun, but again, it just drags a little too long, and I didn't enjoy it enough to want to spend 2 to 5 hours there, which is I was in that area for somewhere in that amount of time. And so again, the pacing, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, they picked an endpoint, and they knew they wanted to make the game a certain amount of length, and so they did their very best. They did their very best to make it interesting the whole time. It just kind of falls short here and there. Yeah. And that kind of brings me back to what I always say when people are probably tired of hearing me say, but this was a 30-hour game. Why not make it a tight 20? Yeah, I agree. And then if you want, put the end content somewhere else. Make the thing that they can spend another 10 to 15 hours at the back end if you want. And they do. There's a lot of you can go replay this. You can go do the extra stuff and find all the weapons and get all the materia and fight the secret bosses and all that. So, okay, so where does this game end though? Okay, so you I assume you save Tifa, then what's
Yep. So you save Tifa from the crime boss. The crime boss then reveals a huge piece of information, which is what Tifa was after, in that because he has connections to Shinra. He doesn't work for Shinra, but he's got connections with them because corporations and mob bosses go hand in hand. And it turns out that the Shinra Corporation is going to drop one of the city plates on top of Sector 7. So the entire city has 2 levels. It has the actual like fancy part where normal people live, and it has the slums underneath. And the fancy part is supported by these just gargantuan, metal, stone, concrete plates that hover above and block out the sun to everybody who lives in the slums. And they're going to intentionally drop one of those plates on top of Sector 7 and kill everybody in the name of, countering the avalanche terrorism. They're going to pin it on, Barrett and his crew, but that's their goal. They're going to do that on purpose, using their CIA, secret agent guys. And then so once you save Tifa, it's this race back to stop them from doing that. Except that part takes like 3 hours. No joke. You have to go through some sewers. You have to go through this train graveyard. There's all these random ghosts. Why are all these ghosts here? It's this stupid little... And like the whole time, the characters know it's urgent. Sometimes in a game, something urgent's supposed to be happening and you can just go off and screw around on a side quest and it kind of like creates this dissonance. The game does that to you this time instead of you doing it to yourself. Yeah. Like Tifa's like freaking out. She's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. She's like losing her cool. And Aerith's like, oh, it's okay. We're going to save everybody. And Cloud's just trying to be, his regular self and be like, oh, it's okay. We're going to get through it. But it just takes so long. And it's a really important scene. And I don't see why we couldn't just gotten right to it.
What is it? So in contrast, what's the original? Like?
In the original, you go through a sewer and a train yard. It just doesn't take as long because it's not meant to take as long. Like the sewer is literally like 2 screens. You fight a boss when you get down there first because the mob boss, like he's got you in a trap door and that's how you get in the sewer in the first place. You work through the sewer. You got to run through this train graveyard, and it's just another place that you walk through. In this one, they make a big deal because those ghost dementor things start showing back up again. And you're starting to think that, okay, these guys are important. They have something to do with this story. And they start showing you like visions and apparitions and Cloud's having these mental breaks where he's like seeing Sephiroth at various points in the game earlier and now and then later in the game. And it just takes too long. But eventually they get there. They get to the plate, the pillar that's holding it. And there's this big shootout going on with Barrett and Jesse and Jesse, Wedge, and Biggs are all on the pillar stairs thing. And they're fighting at different sections. And this is where you run up and you're fighting people along the way. And as you get there, though, Wedge drops from like the top of the pillar. And in the original one, this is where he just flat out dies. He dies in this moment because he just fell from 6 stories up. And it's kind of sad because oh man, this guy that, we were helping out just a couple hours ago is dead. And you're crawling up the stairs again. And then eventually you run into Biggs. And Biggs is, he's been cornered in a firefight and he's dying. And you have this really moving moment with him, like a speech thing where he's like, oh man, we did some pretty bad stuff, but I guess this is what we got coming to us. And you keep going up the stairs, and then finally you get to Jessie, who saves you from something, but then she dies in the process as well. And it's all very sad and very moving. You get to the top.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, is this what happens in the original?
It's both.
Okay.
Except for Wedge, the fat guy.
Yeah.
He does not die right away. He is well enough to move on, but he can't fight anymore. So I think, what is it? I think Tifa sends Aerith to go get Marlene, and Wedge is supposed to show her the way, how to get to the bar and stuff. And so you go to the top of the pillar, and you have a fight with some bosses, the guys who work for the Shinra Corporation, and you're about to stop it, and then these ghost things show up again. They stop you from stopping it. And you're like, why are these ghost things here? They weren't in the original. None of these ghost things are not in the original game. That's a very important point. The ghosts are not part of the original game. And then the pillar ends up falling and supposedly killing everyone. There's this terrible scene where, as it's starting to fall, you're seeing the destruction. It's cutting to people running and getting trapped under rubble. And Wedge has these cats that you see earlier on. He's giving them cute names and everything. And like as the pillar's falling, it cuts to Wedge and he's trying to scoop up his cats. And then he looks up only to see the thing come crashing down on him.
Oh, man.
And it's like the worst thing ever. I was like, whoa, that was brutal. Aerith, in the meantime, she's being hunted by the Shinra Corporation because, haha, turns out she's this special lady. And so she makes a deal. She'll go with them as long as they leave Marlene alone. She somehow gets Marlene to her mom's house. It's never obvious how that happens. Presumably the Shinra just like take her in a helicopter and drop her off because they're evil, but they're not that evil.
I thought her mom was dead.
Whose? Aerith's?
No, Marlene's.
No, I'm sorry, Aerith's mom.
Okay, gotcha.
Aerith's mom, yeah. That's the deal. And so the three others escape. So Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett escape. They have no idea what's going on. Barrett thinks his daughter's dead. He pretty much knows everybody else he knows and loves is dead because that pillar just crushed everything. Tifa knows that she sent Aerith, though, and so she's pretty sure that she got her there in time. Barrett's like, oh, that's the only hope I have now. We're going to get revenge on Shinra. And so now they have to go save Aerith. They find out from the mom, the Aerith's mom, that they did take her, and they have to go and get her. Man.
Okay, no, and so did they blow up the reactor already at this point in the second one?
Yeah, they did. They blew up the reactor.
Gotcha. Sorry.
And so this was like, they pin it on Avalanche as like a third act of terrorism, but this was just them trying to squash out Avalanche from messing up their plans even more.
Sure.
They weren't able to do it. So you spent a lot of time trying to get to the Shinra headquarters. You eventually get to the Shinra headquarters. It's a really fun sequence, and I'm starting to speed up here. But again, up until this point, let's see. The ghost things, have they revealed who they are yet at this point? I don't think so. But you get there, and you go through the Shinra headquarters. It's this fancy building, and it looks state of the art and really cool. And you have to get to the secret lab where Aerith's being held by Hojo, this evil mad scientist who just wants to dissect her and find out. Well, he doesn't want to dissect her right away, but he wants to find out what makes her tick, because it turns out she's this thing called an ancient, and they were the people that used to live on this planet, and they were all like, oh, we talk with nature and we talk with the planet and stuff, and we can use magic and all that. And you don't know what happened to him at this point. But she's like the key, they think, to this promised land where all the Mako energy is going to be, and they can make a new Midgar and be even richer, because apparently that's the only thing that matters to them. And it's just as like mustache twirly as it was originally at this point.
Except for now it's a little too real.
Except now it's a little too real, exactly. And so they eventually do find her, they reunite with her, and then you meet another character, and again, that's the Red 13. He is like this wolf tiger dog thing. And he can talk like a human. And at this point, Aerith touches him and conveys some knowledge to him about what these ghost things are. And it turns out the ghost things are the planet defending the timeline. And so now it's gotten very meta. So every time so far there's been an event in the game that was a little bit different from the original, these ghosts show up. And they stop it from happening, because apparently we're in a different timeline now, and Sephiroth is messing with things, and the planet is using its powers to defend itself via these ghost things. And that doesn't make a lick of sense, really. You're like you get this information, you're like, I don't really understand what's going on still. But apparently there are time shenanigans going on, like, 4/5 of the way through this game. And Aerith knows this now. She's starting to talk to the planet. It seems it's not like obvious, but and yet at the same time, it's clear something's going on. She's starting to tap into her latent powers. And there's one thing, right? So at the very beginning, Aerith and Cloud meet, and they're about to go off together, but then the ghosts show up and they shove Aerith away because Cloud and her aren't supposed to meet yet. You're not supposed, that's not supposed to happen until he falls through the church. And at some point, somebody gets carried, at the part where the pillar is going to fall, you're almost successful in stopping it, except in the original game, you don't stop it. And so the ghosts show up and prevent you from doing anything to the computer console to stop the plate from falling. And then it has to fall anyway. And so you keep going through the lab. You fight
to hear you explain it, that kind of makes sense, but in the moment I can understand being.
It does,
totally,
but then like, why does the timeline need to be kept in the first place? Who's changing the timeline? You're like, why? What is this concept that never existed? And so you're going. There are these hints that Sephiroth is back in the city, except you would only really know that if you'd played the original. It's hinted at that somebody's back, and you're like, oh, who is it? It's like, oh, they're speaking in like generalities and pronouns and stuff. And so you get to the top of the tower. You've saved Aerith. You get to the top of the tower. You're following this weird goopy trail because there was this giant thing in a lab in a tube, and then you see Sephiroth, but then you fall through this hole and you have to go through this really annoying dungeon thing. And then you follow Sephiroth up the stairs, and you get to the president's office. Sephiroth's nowhere to be found. The president's nowhere to be found. The president of Shinra. And you go outside, and he's hanging from this rafter thing. And then Barrett saves him, and he kind of gets to say his piece about what's going on. But then the president pulls out a gun. He's like, oh, you idiots, you fell for my blah, blah, blah. And he's got the gun pointed. It's made of gold because, of course,
why wouldn't it be?
Exactly. He's pointing the gun at Barrett. He's got the drop on him. And then, shunk, sword goes through his back. And Sephiroth's standing right behind the president. Everyone's in total shock. Does it happen like that? Something like that. I might be getting this mixed up a bit. And then all of a sudden, Barrett gets stabbed through the back. And this is the first major... Oh, I forgot to say, Wedge survives. Wedge survives somehow, and you find him later when you're, like, navigating the underground rubble. And Wedge does not survive in the original. So that was like the first major kind of like... But at the same time, you could kind of be like, okay, well, they just want Wedge to survive because they want, like, a touchstone from the beginning of the game to kind of carry on through. And it's not that significant, but then Barrett gets stabbed through the chest, and Barrett never gets stabbed through the chest by Sephiroth. When you get to the president's headquarters or the president's office in the original, he's already dead. The sword's just sticking out of him there at the table, and you're like, it had to be Sephiroth, but he's nowhere to be found, and the president's just already dead. So Sephiroth comes in, he kills the president, he kills Barrett, or at least, you think he did, and then the ghosts show up again, and this whole time Sephiroth's making crazy conversation with Cloud. Cloud doesn't know what's going on, nobody knows what's going on. The ghosts show up, and then they heal Barrett because Barrett's not supposed to die, and they want everything to happen as it's supposed to. And at that point I'm like, what the heck is going on? Why are they doing these like weird rug pulls? President's son shows up. He's like, this is my business now. Cloud fights him. It's a really cool fight, but it's over really quick. I love that character. Rufus Shinra is really awesome in the original, and it looks like they're going to make him even better in this one. But as soon as he shows up, he's gone. You escape on a cool motorbike while everyone else is in a truck. You fight this boss while you're on the motorcycle in this kind of like slashy minigame thing. And that's where originally the Midgar portion ends. You fight this like giant robot boss on the highway in a regular battle, and then you guys leave Midgar with the goal being, let's chase after Sephiroth and kill him, because why not? You're actually not even sure why you want to kill him in the original. You just do because he's a bad guy, I guess. Like, it's not very clear. It comes clear soon why Cloud hates him so much, but that won't happen until the next game in this new remake. Except, so in this one, instead of that being the end, Sephiroth is at the end of the bridge, and he starts making all this gobbledygook conversation about time again. And then he walks into this giant storming purple portal that he just created out of nowhere. And Aerith starts giving this really kind of like in-the-know speech about how he's wrong and nothing about this is right, and we need to fight against fate to blah, blah, blah. It's very, very anime, very bombastic, because they felt like they had to create something at the end of this to make it worth people's time. They couldn't just end, and now they're done, because it is kind of a fart of an ending if you just end it that way. Except what they did was so much more than they needed to. So you go into the portal, and there he is, and there's more ghosts, and it's very Kingdom Hearts. This is where Nomura and all his Kingdom Hearts nonsense is really shining through. Like, you're in another dimension, basically. You're in a time between time, space and time, and all that stuff. and you fight all these ghost spirits, and you fight this gigantic ghost spirit, and then you fight Sephiroth, because apparently you have to fight Sephiroth. In the original, you don't even see the guy. You don't see him once at like in the same amount of time. Like before you leave Midgar, you never see Sephiroth, not once. In this one, you see him at the very beginning in Visions, you see him throughout the other parts in Visions, and then he finally shows up, like, quote unquote, in person. He stabs Barrett, he stabs the other president, etc. You beat the big ghost boss, and then that gets you out of this weird time portal thing. And then meanwhile, you're getting these flashes of this other guy from another Final Fantasy VII game called Crisis Core, which is a prequel that explains how Cloud got the way he is and got the Buster Sword and all that stuff. And at the end of Crisis Core, the main character, Zack Fair, dies. It's really moving. It's really cool. He does it to save Cloud's life. It's awesome. So they're showing that scene at some point, like through all the stuff I just explained. At some point, there's a flashback, timey-wimey vision thing. And they show that scene where he's about to die. And then after you beat everybody, they show the scene, except he's not dead. And he picks up Cloud, and he walks to the city, because they're just outside of Midgar in the past. And he's like, all right, we did it. Now we got to get back to town or whatever. And this little chip bag floats by, and there's this character on it, except that you'd seen earlier in the game. It's like this mascot, like brand thing, except it's a different character mascot, implying that whatever you're looking at is a completely different timeline from the original. Except now you've killed the things that were keeping the original time in place.
Why did you do that? That's the thing I don't understand.
I don't either. Somehow, Sephiroth, who is killed in the original, big spoiler. Oh no, the bad guy dies. It's like, it's not that big.
It's a spoiler cast. It's fine.
Exactly. But like, you could assume that somehow future Sephiroth has acquired time traveling manipulation powers, but he doesn't have ultimate power over time, obviously. Otherwise he would just do whatever he wants. He needed to destroy this defense system the planet has. And he like creates this scenario in which by fighting you in this weird time dimension, you're actually fighting they call them the Arbiters of Fate, and you kill, presumably, I think I have this right, but basically you kill the things that are preventing the timeline from changing. So from now on, it's anybody's guess what's going to happen. All bets are off. This is no longer just a straight up remake. This is like Final Fantasy VII Part 2.
Yeah, this is Final Fantasy VII on crack.
It's basically Final Fantasy Endgame, as it were.
Don't spoil Endgame for me, because I have not seen it.
I know. This would be easier to explain if it could. And so it's a really big deal that Zack is alive. Like, I cannot stress enough how big of a deal it is. Zack is Aerith's old flame. Like, they were, like he was her boyfriend. And she mentions him in the original as like a passing thing. Like, Cloud's going to go through some really big mental hoops, basically. He doesn't think he's Zack, but he thinks he had Zack's life because of some things that happened to him around the time that Zack dies and Zack saves his life. He's going through this big mind screw, and he kind of forgets who he was and who he is, and at the same time kind of gains some of his powers through what happened to him. And I'm not skipping this because I'm trying to avoid spoilers. I'm just skipping it because I just do not have enough time to get into it. But it's really important that Zack is dead to the original story, because Cloud kind of thinks he's Zack. He still thinks he's Cloud. He still remembers Tifa from his childhood. But there are these hints along the way in both the original and the remake where Tifa's like, the things you're saying, Cloud, don't make sense. And the facial expression she gives is like, that's not right. I didn't see you 5 years ago, or I saw you more than 5 years ago, or whatever, and all these kinds of things. And so now he's alive. So what does that mean for anything anymore? I have no idea. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of wish we were filming this week. We talked about potentially doing a test run next week of filming, because like my facial expressions the entire time, I was very confused but like intrigued, and yeah, wow, that's I mean, it sounds really cool to hear you tell it, but it does sound like that there were some some potential pacing issues, but I just not being a fan of the original, I think this is really cool what they've done.
It is cool. So at first, you don't know what to make of it. Because like so much of this game is so good and true to form. And again, like this perfect translation of old to new. And the things that are different are not changes. They're just additions. They enhance rather than alter. Except for a couple things here and there, like when Wedge is alive. And it's like, and the way certain people might come in and out of the story, or there's brand new characters. But it isn't until like the final hour and a half where things just go bonkers and like the rug is pulled out from under you 100%, and you don't know what to expect anymore. And it's like, it's very meta. Like, people have compared the ghost spirit arbiters things to fans. Like, those are the fans telling the developers, don't change the game, keep it the same. And the developers are the characters, and they're like, no, we want to make something new. We have to forge a new path.
Wow.
And it's like, it's remarkably well done.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, go ahead. Sorry.
No, if you just look back on it, and like some people are getting a little too far into like what's very common, especially a long running series that has a lot of stuff that you can call back to. There's a lot of hints about what could be happening or what could still happen just based on like the way a piece of music might play. Like, oh my gosh, that was from Advent Children, which is a movie that takes place after Final Fantasy VII. You know what that means? Blah, 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 blah. These kinds of things. And those could be true. Like, they might be right. Or it could just be a thematic representation of something that has no like actual narrative significance. And so those people are like, they're on cloud cuckoo land. But all the stuff that you can claim is definitely clearly happening because you watched it play out in front of your eyes. It's actually really well done.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of do you remember when, oh geez, I feel like I'm gonna butcher this, but here's a Kotaku article about it. It says that the time Kojima deceived everyone about Metal Gear Solid 2's protagonist.
Yes.
Okay. So this kind of reminds me of that a little bit, because I feel like Square definitely marketed this game as like a remake, just a remake of the original. That's, I feel like, what everybody expected. And I feel like somehow they managed to keep this under wraps enough that everyone's expectations were subverted a little bit, for better or worse, depending on what your takeaway from it was. But I do remember listening to someone talk about that Metal Gear Solid fake out, and they were like, something like that could never happen again in today's like social media, kind of the way we're at with everything and how connected we all are. Like, you can't keep a secret like that. But I feel like this is that big because they're just like, they're totally making it this other thing. But they had you for 28 hours thinking that it was a 1-to-1.
Yeah, pretty much.
So now I feel like they can do whatever they want to with the rest of it, honestly, because of this timeline thing. Like, maybe the rest of it's not even following the same storyline at all. Maybe the rest of it's just a trilogy.
It will be the way that they're able to condense it. Like, I am still really concerned with like how many games we're going to get, or how long it's going to take them to get the next two out to us, assuming it's a trilogy, which I'm going to assume this is a trilogy for now, because to do anything else is you are getting into Kingdom Hearts territory, and that didn't turn out well for them. Like, that was not a good idea to make that many games and spread it out over that long of a time.
Well, not to mention to make it on that many different platforms.
That's a separate thing.
Where they were exclusive to those platforms.
Right. And I mean,
a mainline game on the 3DS.
oh, Kingdom Hearts. But yeah, like, so, and there are conflicting things, because it's Japanese, translated to English, and it could be some guy saying something that's not accurate, or it could be somebody not talking to somebody else. But like, they've said that even though some things have clearly changed, without spoiling it to people who haven't played, the developers and producers, they're still going to try to stick to the main beats. You're still going to go to the next town that you would normally go to. You're still going to. So big spoiler. It's so funny. You're always out walking on eggshells. It's weird to talk about huge spoilers. Aerith dies in this game pretty early on. Not like the first third, maybe the first 2/3 of the game.
In the original.
In the original.
Okay.
Correct. There's this scene. You're in this like really ancient place where the ancients used to live. You're chasing Sephiroth around because at this point you know his goal is to use a meteor to destroy the entire Earth. He's hooked up with this extraterrestrial being that was kept in the lab called Genova.
I gotta keep you straight here. This is in the remake.
What?
I said I gotta
keep in the remake. I'm talking about the original.
There were ancients in the original?
No. They went to a place the ancients used to live.
Gotcha.
It's the only ancient left alive at this point is Aerith.
And this is in the original?
Original, yeah.
Okay, but I thought the ancients were the ghosts.
No, the ghosts are something new in the remake. So Mako is basically what happens when you pull out this thing called the life stream, which is the lifeblood of the planet. And the life stream is made out of the souls of everybody who's ever lived. And like it's this cycle of life thing. Like you die, your soul goes to the life stream. That life stream allows for new life to be created, and new souls and new people are born out of it. Basically, it's that key ingredient to life, essentially, and it just keeps going back in circles.
Okay, so to be clear, there were ancients in the original.
Yes, in
and that is a totally different thing from the ghosts.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay,
the
I'm
ghosts
on board.
And the ancients are not the same thing. The ghosts are just the planet. They're the souls of the planet, the soul of the planet. It's just like this autonomous, robotic-esque, quote-unquote, defense mechanism. Like, again, like Sephiroth is messing with time. The planet is somehow, savvy to that, and so it's trying to stop it. But that's really all the details you get. Okay, time is being screwed with, and the ghosts want to stop that.
Okay, so circle back. Aerith dies in the first third of the original game.
Right, so there's this whole idea that Sephiroth has a certain amount of control over Cloud. You don't know why until things are explained later, but like as you come to a head at this part, there's this scene, Aerith's like praying in this pond thing, and Cloud's walking up to her all creepy, and there's this kind of like goofy but also creepy scene where like you've lost control of Cloud, so to speak, and every time you press a button, he takes a step closer to her. He's like raising his sword, and then he's like shaking his head, like he's like, "What am I doing?" Like it's all nonverbal. There's no text, there's no anything. It's just music and the gameplay happening, and then it switches to a cutscene. Sephiroth drops from the sky and just impales Aerith with his sword, which is like 10 feet long. No joke. It's literally that long.
Wow, impressive. Compensating much? I think so.
And so it's like, one of the biggest moments in gaming history. Like, and, Aerith is a party member. Like, she's a party member up until that moment. And Final Fantasy characters have had some people die before, but they've always come back. Aerith does not come back. There's no cheap, like, oh, I was alive in the live stream the whole time. And the rest of the game, as far as Cloud is concerned, is dealing with that death. I think, and this is just me getting into fun speculation, hot take things, I think Cloud's going to kill her. I don't think Sephiroth's going to be the one to do it anymore. I think Cloud's going to kill her. I don't know if he's going to do it on purpose or not. He's either going to be controlled, and it's going to be really, sad that, Sephiroth made him do it with his own hands. Or, for some reason, Aerith is going to know the future, and she's going to know her death is necessary, and she's going to make Cloud do it, which would be even more heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope they do it that way. And if Aerith doesn't die for some reason, they're going to kill Tifa instead. Those are my thoughts on the subject of the big death scene that,
Yeah.
So
I like
I
it.
don't think this game, Sephiroth gets defeated. That's still going to happen. The manner of his defeat will be different. And then the outcome of his defeat will be different, because this kind of implies that the original timeline is like the bad one, kind of. That, like, I think that's how they're going to play it. Like, oh yeah, you guys technically stopped Sephiroth from destroying the planet with a giant meteor, and things were okay for a little while, but it turns out that wasn't the right way to do it, and now we have to do it the right way. Like, it's going to come full circle. We'll see. It might not be good, but it's going to come full circle.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really just overall cool. I'm excited to see what they do with it. To be honest with you, I'm probably not going to play it, and not because of the spoiler cast, and just because it's a 30-hour commitment that I don't want to make. So I can't wait to hear your spoiler cast on Final Fantasy VII Part 2. So I can figure out what happened and how the story continues.
I mean, to anybody who doesn't have time or a strong like affinity to the series, but does have time to watch a YouTube video, go watch some let's plays, like ones where people aren't talking, where they're just playing through the game and showing the cutscenes. Like, hopefully they're not doing too many side quests, but like, it's worth seeing and experiencing, and then maybe playing again or playing the second one when it comes out if it like really kind of speaks to you. But I'm just gonna say that I love Barrett. I think he's a great character. I was gonna go more on this, but I think out of all the existing characters, they did the best by him, because he's still kind of a caricature and he's still just a teensy bit racist, but he's not nearly as racist as he used to be. Not as racist as he was portrayed. And just the way that he cares about his friends, he cares about his cause. Every scene with him and his daughter is just like, ugh, that gets me right here because I have a tiny daughter and she's super cute. And, it's cheap, but it works on me because, that's how I feel. But like, even in this small amount of like time that we're with Barrett, because he's actually not in a lot of the first part of the game, and they handle that kind of strangely. That's why they stab him, by the way, because at no point are you allowed more than 3 people in your party, but they don't let you choose who's in your party at any point either. And so with the part Barrett gets stabbed is a part where you would have to make that decision. They have to come up with a reason that Barrett can't go into the next fight, basically. And so I think that's really why they stabbed him. They took him out of commission narratively, so they wouldn't have to come up with a reason why he wasn't joining the fight. And then afterward, they healed him, and it's like, oh, everything's fine now.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's one way around it.
Pretty much. But yeah, it's so you get 4 people, and then you get the red 13 guy who's a dog, and he joins you for the fight, but he never actually, you can never control him. He's always this like AI controlled character. And I'm very curious how they're going to handle when they add, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 more characters to add who stick with the game, who stick with the party for the entire game. And they all get introduced pretty quickly, after everybody leaves Midgar. So I'm very interested to see how they're going to handle something they didn't even kind of broach in this game. I thought we would see it, but because at the end you have 5 different party members, but you're only allowed 3, but then they just kind of skirt their way around it with like cheap story tricks.
So how do they do it in the original in terms of like who goes into battle?
It's just like any other JRPG. The assumption is that the party is with you. You just only get to take 3 people into battle. It's a bit of a disconnect from the gameplay.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So why can't you pick? I mean, they could do something where you have like an order of the party. It sounds like they already have some sort of system for that.
And they don't do. Like, I mean, they do with the 3 people, but they just did not. They did not incorporate the idea that you would have to make a choice. They made the choice for you.
You just make a party leader, though.
Correct. Yeah.
I gotcha.
And then, in battle, you can swap through everybody like you could in the demo.
Okay.
Yeah. So I liked it a lot. Overall assessment is I liked it a lot. I would like to play it again. I know I said that afterward, and you said you were going to stop being my friend.
I did say that because you need to stop doing this to yourself.
Guy, I haven't replayed a single game this year. I said I wasn't going to replay. I wasn't going to play anything I beat or played before for the most part, and I have kept my word.
Okay, but you only made it like a quarter through the year, and you're already talking about doing it, and you skirted the rules by doing Fire Emblem, which you got pretty close to beating, and then you pretty much like restarted it, right?
Yeah, that's because I was more like halfway through.
Okay.
No, I was pretty close. I was like 2 chapters away, it turns out.
Oh my gosh.
But I didn't know that.
Why don't you could look that up. You can look that sort of thing up.
I don't like to do that. Besides, I had lost all momentum, and like I didn't know who was good at what anymore, and I just wanted to start over.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, that's my spoiler cast. Turns out I'm really bad at spoiler casts. It's really hard when you're the only.
Why? I thought it was great spoiler cast, but I mean I don't listen to them, but I liked that one.
Oh, well, as long as you enjoyed it. But like, it's hard when you're the only person who's played it in the conversation.
Well, I see what you're doing here. You're blaming it on me.
I'm not blaming nothing. I appreciate you listening to all of that. There's so much I didn't go over. Like,
I'm sure it'll pour out of you at some point. You're not going to be able to not talk about this game again.
I would like to take a break from talking about it on the podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Like now, immediate break, or just like a break, like don't talk about it next episode.
Next episode or two. I want to talk about combat real quick. So combat is cool. If you've played it, seen it, you know what it's about. But there's a lot of room for improvement. Like it's a pseudo action game. Like you're moving around and you're like controlling attacks on a per button press moment. And yet at the same time, so much of what happens is out of your control. Like enemies are never interrupted by your actions, and you're constantly interrupted by their actions. And it's really irritating to start an ability, and then the enemy just like flicks a wrist and they just throw you halfway across the screen. Rolling is completely useless. It has no purpose whatsoever. I don't know why it's in the game, because it makes you think you can dodge an attack, except then the hitbox is like 4 times larger than you think it is. And you just get wailed on it. There are too many fights where the boss or group of enemies are like, oh, it's going to take you like four times longer to beat us if you don't have the right materia equipped. And there's a lot of materia, and you might not have it equipped. And so either you have to slog through it or just kind of like force restart the game. Not the game, but the battle, because it'll send you right before that encounter, and then you can swap your materia out. But like, you shouldn't have to do that. So you need to make the enemy weaknesses different, or you have to have like some way to let people change their loadouts either in battle or like just prior to like a major fight, because it's just not fun anymore. Then it just becomes like clench your teeth into like crack irritating. Aerial combat is a joke, and yet there are way too many enemies that only fly around in the sky, so you're either limited to these really quick, like the characters will like jump up to meet them, but you can't do any of your special abilities in the air, so all you can do is like hack at them twice before they fall back to the ground. Or you can cast spells, but in order to get the action bars to use the spells, you gotta attack the enemy, and so then you're forced to jump up in the sky and slash at them twice and fall back down. It's stupid. I don't know why they did it that way. Yeah, so there's a lot of improvement to be done in the combat, in the pacing, especially. I think they should just cut the side quest stuff out or retool it, because side quests are a big thing in Final Fantasy VII, but they're not how you would traditionally expect a side quest to be like it is in modern games, and I don't know how you translate it to modern games. They were very organic. You'd be in a town, you'd talk to some rando guy, and he might mention something, and if you follow him up on it, it might be nothing, and if you go to a place that he talked about, there might be something, and that might lead to another thing, and so forth and so on. Whereas in this game, it's just like it's just a task list. There's people in a group, they all have a question mark on their head, that kind of thing.
I hate that. That's one thing I loved about. I know I'm going way off here, but like, and I it's like I could never go an episode without talking about Skyrim and The Witcher. But that kind of follow the breadcrumbs, might be something, might be nothing. Like, I love that aspect, and I feel like those implementations of it are so much better than when it feels like inorganic, like you're describing.
Yeah. All right. And spoilers here.
Okay, great. I'll worry about time codes later.
Yeah, sure.
So we are going a little over here. We're about like 2-hour mark. Do we want to save questions for next time, or do you want to hit like one quick one, or what do you want to do?
Let's just do them both.
Okay. Yes. You know what? We'll just have a long episode. Who cares?
Maybe we'll skip the bet.
No, I'm calling him one way or the other, but we can skip.
Yeah, we got to find out if he's the worst or not.
Well, the funny thing is his work schedule changed recently. So if I'm not mistaken, he's off tonight, technically.
That is funny. Which means he's sleeping.
But I don't know if he is or not, because I don't know which way he flipped his sleep schedule.
Oh, he's sleeping.
I haven't talked to him in, 3 or 4 days, so I really don't know if he's awake or not.
All right. Let's do some questions, and then we'll call your brother.
Okay, cool. You want me to read it since you've been talking?
Yes, please.
Okay. This one is from Sean. He writes, Hey fellas, really enjoyed the podcast earlier in the week. Kind of settled on not playing Final Fantasy VII Remake given the feedback. Maybe he'll listen to the spoiler cast and change his mind.
Maybe.
That said, glad to see you've both been having some time to game, especially with a chunk of it being Pirates and D&D. Question for the week. What series are you most looking forward to having or most wishing for a sequel? And on the flip side, what series do you think can stay finished? Take care, Sean.
Great question, Sean.
Yeah.
Something I've thought about before. Jason, why don't you start us off?
Okay. So one that I absolutely can't wait for is definitely the follow-up to, I think it was 2016's Ratchet and Clank. I absolutely loved that game. It had so much charm. It had so much character. It gave me this like vibe like I was playing The Incredibles. I love the art style. I love the combat system. I love the weapon systems. Love the upgrade systems. I think it was like a 15 or 20 hour game. It was a $40 price point. Like, sign me up for all of that and more. I mean, I have only good things to say about Ratchet and Clank. And then the one I'm most wishing for is Legacy of Kain. That was like an early Amy Hennig game. And I don't know who all has played it before. Karch, I don't even know if you've played it before.
I haven't.
Okay, well, it's basically like I'm trying to describe if there's any modern game this.
I think I've heard it described as Zelda-like. Is that accurate?
I guess in a way, if you're talking about mostly like the dungeon portion. So you're a vampire, and you have certain abilities where you can like possess people, suck people's blood. You have some combat abilities, and you use these abilities to navigate your way through like puzzles and whatnot to do whatever the goal is. I mean, it's been a very long time since I played it. I just remember really, really loving it. So that's what those are the ones that I'm on board for. The one that I think can stay gone, honestly, as much as it pains me to say this, Diablo. Because I'm tired of being disappointed by Diablo.
Me too.
I am. And it's not going to stop me from being excited for Diablo 4 like an idiot. And it's not going to stop me from buying it day one, staying up all night, being pissed off that the servers aren't working, not being able to play it, and then being tired at work the next day. But if they wanted to just stop making Diablo sequels and give me what I really want, which is a Diablo 2 remaster, then I'd be fine with that. So that's my one that can stay gone. As sequels, I still, to be clear, if anyone from Blizzard's listening, I still want the Diablo 2 remaster, but just keep Diablo 4 to yourself. I don't want to see it.
Those are good answers, Jason, and I agree with both of them. I loved, excuse me, the Ratchet and Ratchet and Clank reboot thing. It was one of the first games I played on my PS4, which was my reintroduction into like more modern gaming again. That wasn't a handheld device. I got it for even cheaper than $40. I picked it up via GameFly, but I thought about platinuming that game, but I ended up going against it.
I got it in 2018, so I got it as one of the Platinum Collection or whatever, so I think I got it for like $15.
Cool.
And actually, Greg bought it for me, so there.
Oh, thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
And then, Diablo. I almost put Diablo for mine too, but I'm just with you 100%. Give us D2 Remaster. We've talked about it already. Just stop making D4. And whatever happened to that mobile game that everybody got so mad about?
I don't know, and I don't want to know.
It's been almost 2 years at this point, and I don't think I've seen a single piece of news about it.
Don't you guys have phones?
Look it up. And I'd like to play your dumb game on it. So I can drop it 4 months later like I do all mobile games.
Yeah.
All right. So my hyped one is basically just... I'm cheating. As far as games that actually exist, because I could probably wax on about a bunch of canceled sequels, etc. Funnily enough, Paper Mario would have been high up there, except then they announced a Paper Mario game last week.
Your answer.
It's still it. It's tied between Hollow Knight Silk Song, sequel to Hollow Knight, and then the sequel to the 2018 God of War. Two of my favorite games in the last 10 years, and I just want more of both of them. Silksong is almost definitely going to come out before the God of War sequel. If it doesn't, something is seriously, seriously wrong. Or, Cory Balrog is sold his soul to the devil, and I did it again, Balrog. Barlog.
Let's okay, new rule. We're not allowed to say his last name on this podcast anymore. We're just going to call him Corey.
Corey, friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Corey.
Director of
Corey B?
God of War. Corey what?
Corey B.
Just Corey B, friend of the show. I love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want that game bad. I will buy a PS5 for it for sure.
Yes.
But Silksong's coming first, and Hollow Knight is just an amazing experience, so I definitely want to get more of that.
I can't wait to not play it.
As far as Kill It, I almost got real cheeky here, and I'll say why in a sec, but my Kill It is Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts 3 sucked overall. It's not a bad game. It's just a really disappointing game. I'd be willing to take just one more to wrap up the entire series, and with a promise of no more goofy shenanigans, no cliffhangers, no loose threads that they want to make more games about. I want
no
one more game.
Donald Duck shenanigans either.
Nope, no Donald Duck shenanigans. They can't make anything. They can't ever make another Disney game. They can't ever make anything. No, I want a Kingdom Hearts 4, I guess. Not to undo Kingdom Hearts 3, but to just make good on what I wanted Kingdom Hearts 3 to be, I guess.
Kingdom Hearts 4 Endgame.
There you go. And then they can put that series to bed, because I just don't want it anymore. I just wanted one last good one in Kingdom Hearts 3, and I was deprived that. I was going to say Zelda after Breath of the Wild 2. You can stop playing Zelda forever. I think we've got enough at that point.
I disagree, but okay.
Yeah, I know most people would, but
and the reason I say that's because I feel like that's a series where, well, first of all, the IP is invaluable. And second of all, it can be so many different things, and they continue to reinvent it. So I would hate for them to stop making those when they can be so many things, I guess.
Yeah. Like I said, I need to see the sequel. I want to see how they can spring off of the success of Breath of the Wild, but
don't judge it on that, because that's going to be another Breath of the Wild game. You need to judge it on whatever they do after that.
Judge what?
Judge whether or not you want Zelda to stick around based off what they do after Breath of the Wild 2.
It's not that I don't want to see Zelda. That wasn't what I was getting at in that regard. I just don't know if I would miss it if I never played another one, another new one. And Nintendo was forced to focus on trying to basically recreate the amazingness that is Zelda in something new.
Yeah, no, that would be interesting. But
take all those resources, take all that talent, all that ingenuity, but bar them from being allowed to make a Zelda, and then see what they come up with.
Dude, you would just get another, what's the paintball one?
Splatoon?
You just get a Splatoon. I don't like new Nintendo IP that much, and I don't know if it's just the age that I am, but it doesn't seem like the attach rate's that high. I mean, look at ARMS and Splatoon. I mean, people like Splatoon, but it's just a really, really basic shooter. There's no depth to that.
Some people want a basic shooter.
That's true. It's just that, where's their... I don't know. I just feel like they haven't come out with anything that's been super compelling in a while.
You're right. You're not wrong.
But... So yeah, maybe all Nintendo IP. Just end it. And
just give it to us.
Just give it to... Yeah, that's fine. We'll hold on to it. We'll keep it safe. And then you go make something else really cool with all that creative energy.
And we'll give you back your toys when you're done.
All right. All right, next question. And this will be the final question. This one's from Josh. He says, "Hey guys, really enjoying the podcast. First off, happy belated birthday to Karch. He gives you a question for your birthday."
Oh.
So I am just going to read the first part of this, but it says, "I finally got a chance to play some games with friends. And when we started playing, we all immediately started the Discord call. I have some other friends and we always use TeamSpeak. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is I can't remember the last time I used an in-game voice chat. Do you think we'll get to the point where in gaming where hold on, sorry, I butchered that. Do you think we'll get to a point where games where voice is clearly intended and they just point people to Discord and TeamSpeak? I feel like a lot of wasted development effort putting voice into every game. Sorry for the rambling question, is what he says. Well, apology accepted because that was hard to read, Josh. Sorry.
That was cordial.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think? Basically saying, do you think eventually they'll integrate like Discord into consoles and just in games in general, or do you think that developers will continue to try to come up with their own solutions?
I do not think something like Discord will ever be, I mean, not ever, but certainly not this generation and the next one coming up. I don't think they're going to integrate it because it's not something I've ever thought about, but at the same time, you know how they are. They don't like to do stuff like that. Microsoft owns a version of everything, and so they just use their version, and PlayStation hates playing nice with anybody, so they're not going to do that either.
And Nintendo's incapable.
And Nintendo's incapable and unwilling to use voice chat in the first place. So both PlayStation and Xbox have like a party chat if you need to chat outside the game. But
what about developers? You know, what about like like Fortnite's got built-in voice chat. Rocket League has built-in voice chat.
Mm-hmm.
Pirates has built-in voice chat, like into the game.
Yeah.
You think those people could potentially say, just link your Discord account and then we'll just do some back-end stuff? Or,
I mean, they could, but like you have to get Xbox on board and then you have to work with Discord. No, I mean, it might streamline some of it, but I don't think it streamlines all of it. I feel like this stuff is probably very boilerplate, if I had to guess, like voice chat technology inside a game. I don't think it's complicated. I've never once heard that it takes up a lot of time to implement, that it's ever been a pain point.
No, it's a pain point for me as a consumer.
It is?
It's annoying that every single time, because every single time I, like Josh said, the first thing I do is start up Discord, and then I get into the game, and then I have to figure out if there's a team chat built into it.
Stop doing Discord.
And is it proximity based or not? Well, then some games don't have voice chat. And then how do you even get to the point where you're in the game in the same party without having some form of voice chat outside? Because a lot of times figuring out how to get into the same party could take 15, 20 minutes.
What game doesn't have voice chat?
But what I'm saying is you can't be in the voice chat with those people until they're in your party. Sometimes
you can't be in a party chat unless you're friends with those people. And sometimes you are, but a lot of the time, so this is a reason why you can't take it out of a game, I guess I should say. I'm a rando jumping into Call of Duty or Overwatch or whatever.
That's a good point.
I don't know these people. I can't make a party chat with them because all I'm doing is I'm having a 5 to 20 minute match. I'm never going to hear or see from them again. I need to be able to talk to them still. So immediately I need, a solution that will just kind of work for me as long as my headphones are plugged in.
Well, they should make it off by default. That's my one request. And also, if developers could maybe decide
it's not very Apple of you.
Decide on one single way to get into a party and then get into a game and start playing. Just decide on one way. Because it's so different in different games, and it's really, hard. I think, honestly, the best I've seen recently is Epic does a really good job of this. It's really easy to do in Fortnite. It was really easy to do in Dauntless, which was built in Unreal, and it looks very similar. I know Epic didn't develop that game. It's really easy to do in Rocket League too. So anyway, some people do it well, and others don't. There.
Yeah, I agree that there is a game to game is like you never know what you're going to get when it comes to getting your group together. Like you said, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not, and it's strange that there isn't like kind of a more uniform way of doing it. Like, oh yeah, I know how to do it because I did it in this game.
It should be really easy, and I think the answer can't be that you have to have a separate account tied to your email for every single game that's ever existed.
Agreed.
You need to make a what game was that? The pirate game we were playing?
Sea of Thieves?
Yeah, you need to make a Sea of Thieves account. I actually don't think you need one for that.
No,
but I know
that's
Bethesda's bad about that. Like, there are a lot that are really bad about that.
Yeah.
So, anyway. All right, it's that time. Let's give that man a call, except for this time it won't be tied to a bet because we need to actually play some games we like for once.
Agreed.
Okay. We didn't even guess if he's going to answer. This one's just if he's going to be the worst or not. Worst.
Sounds fine by me.
I think he's going to be the worst because if he doesn't pick up on the second ring, he's not going to answer.
It's usually how it goes.
This is MO.
We should make him play something.
Ooh, that's a much better idea.
Hi, you've reached
I can't say that I'm surprised.
I told you he was sleeping.
You were right. You don't get anything for it, but you were right.
That's fine. Xenoblade comes out on the 29th. My hands are full.
Yeah. That's gonna be you got 2 days to beat it. That's gonna be your JRPG for me.
Yeah, okay. 100 hours.
Right. Hey, you got 2 days.
Literally only half the time available. Just go ahead and pull a Sephiroth and open a wormhole.
There you go. Easy peasy. That's all you have to do.
Easy peasy.
Okay. Well, that was a very long episode. Hopefully some people listen and enjoy it. That's all for this week. You go find us at neverfreetoplay.com or patreon.com/neverfreetoplay. Go hit us up on YouTube. We're Never Free to Play on there, as well as Twitter. Follow us. Hope you guys have a fantastic week. We will try, but we are never free to play.
You think is the Kool-Aid guy, is he fat or is he fit? Like, is he like all muscle or is he just a big flabby flab?
I've thought about this. I don't know. I've been watching Temptation Island, and there's this guy on there who's like 36, and he like simultaneously looks in really good shape and super buff with like huge biceps, but then also like dad bod at the same time. And I feel like maybe the Kool-Aid Man's kind of got that going on.
I mean, he can bust through walls.
Yeah. I mean, if you ever watch those strongman competitions, those people are really strong, but I wouldn't say they have like a desirable physique.
Fair enough. All right. So it's settled. The Kool-Aid Man is a strong man.
Yes.
Perfect.
He does like the teeth pulling thing where he'll pull an 18-wheeler with his teeth.
Man, we've come to a lot of really good conclusions. We figured out who Reggie Fils-Aimé's parents are. We figured out if the Kool-Aid Man is attractive or not.